Hi everybody, I'm Cynthia Washington. I'm the Senior Student and Employer Advisor, the Career Advisor here at SOFA. And thank you for coming. You were here last week, so thank you for coming back. And today we're going to talk about tell your career story in a job interview. So I've been here since April, and this is Don Jones. He's the Director of Recruitment and Admissions. Don, if you want to say hello or anything.
Yep. Hello, glad to be here. Cynthia, thanks for letting me tag along.
Absolutely, I appreciate you being here. So today, like I said, we're going to talk about interviewing. And the reason why I called it Tell Your Career Story in a Job Interview, because nowadays when you're interviewing, you want to have a lot of stories to tell the recruiters when you are interviewing, rather than just kind of blandly answering the questions. So, there we go. This is different. Okay. All right. So for interview preparation, 3 of the things that you want to make sure that you are spending time on doing: research the company, research the industry, and research the interviewer or interviewers. So learn as much as you can about the company from a variety of sources, such as Vault, Glassdoor, Google News, and more importantly, and most importantly, the company's website. A company's website is a wealth of information on there. Look throughout the website. Don't just look at the About section, which is great to look there, but look throughout their entire website so that you can familiarize yourself with the company, the culture, and all those sorts of things. You want to research the industry. So you want to browse trends, trade publications, corporate news, blogs, to be able to discuss the industry. Yes, you want to be able to discuss the company, you want to know all about the company, but you also want to be able to discuss the industry. For example, I work in higher education. So when I interviewed here, I found out all I could about Tulane, but I was able just to discuss the industry because I worked at 2 other universities, and they did ask me questions, general questions, outside of what I would be doing at Tulane. So you want to make sure that you thoroughly research the industry. You could use a market line, ICD research, IDIS World, global data, whatever you want to use, whatever format you choose, just make sure you know a lot about the industry that you're going into, that you're transitioning into, or that you've been working in for a long time, but you're up to date on what's going on, what's current in your industry. This will give you an advantage because you have a better chance of connecting with them when you research the interviewer or interviewers. You can always ask, well, who's going to be interviewing me? Okay, so you want to make sure that you look them up on LinkedIn. It's okay, it's not social media. It's a professional networking platform, meaning people know that you're going to be looked at. I get people peeking at me all the time. They're just looking at my profile, and that's okay. So don't ever be afraid of looking at someone's profile on LinkedIn. That's what it's out there for, okay? Some people have certain settings where it's private, where you can't see everything, but you can at least see the first one. You can always find who they are, where they're working, and their education. Sometimes you have to connect with them to see everything else, but at least you have an idea of a little bit about the person. Google them. Well, first of all, you should Google yourself. Google yourself, thank you, and see, what does it say? What does the internet say when you Google yourself? Have you ever done that? Yeah, you'd be surprised. So you want to do the same for the person or people interviewing you. Google them. They don't know you're Googling them. You'll never know what you may find out. Also, social media. Now, of course, you don't want to connect with them on social media. No, heavens no. But there are plenty of people who I looked up on social media just to see what they were all about. You'd be surprised if you find it on Facebook and Twitter. But especially on Twitter, you find out, like, to me, Twitter is more, people post things that are relevant with what's going on in the world. Facebook is kind of more personal stuff, pictures, la cutesy. But if you go on Twitter, like I have a Twitter account, it's not my name, but it's all about all the things that are important to me. So you kind of get an idea about people when you look at them on social media. So you want to make sure, again, that a lot of people don't do this. You want to research the people who are going to interview you, because when you're being interviewed, you look on LinkedIn, you find that perhaps maybe they have they've gone to the same university as you, or maybe they worked at a company that you worked at in the past, or maybe they transitioned careers and they worked in the same career that you did before. You never know what you're going to find out about a person. Those are conversation pieces. Because when you're being interviewed, the most important thing, two of the most important things are, can you do the job and will they like working with you?
That's right.
That's how you can develop a rapport, by knowing a lot about the person or the people who are interviewing you. Okay. Oh, I guess I just gotta click it like that. Okay. The next thing you want to do is do a self-assessment. So think about what makes you a good fit for the position. That's really important. We all apply for jobs and we go, oh, this sounds like a great job. But what actually truly makes you a good fit for that position? So you want to look at that and figure that out for yourself. Look at your motives, your motivations, your values, your strengths, skills, and abilities. Look at all that stuff. Assess all of those things and look to see the things that you possess, your skills and abilities, do they match the job description? Do they actually match what they're looking for? Does it match the company's values? Does it match other people who work for the company? Am I the type of person that they've been hiring? So those are some of the things that you want to do a self-assessment about. So apply that knowledge when asked the dozens of questions that you'll face during an interview. So doing a self-assessment, it helps you identify the strengths that can be emphasized in interviews, because you want to emphasize the strengths that you have that they're looking for. It's all about what they're looking for and seeing if you fit that. It really doesn't make a whole lot of sense to focus on a strength that they haven't mentioned, right? If they want someone who's had leadership or who's a problem solver, those are the things you want to look at your past and you can think about, can I express this and explain this to an interviewer that I actually possess this, okay? So it also gives you practice in articulating your achievements and goals in a way that connects your experience with the needs of the job, which is kind of what I just said. So it also builds your confidence. As you review your background, you become more aware of what you can contribute. Because sometimes we don't really know what we can contribute until we do a self-assessment and think about, wow, when I was working at this company 5 years ago, I did this. I was really good at it, okay? So self-assessment is a crucial step in preparing for any job interview.
And Cynthia, along with that, you mentioned earlier looking at the job description when you're doing your self-assessment. If it's a well-written job description by the company, there is going to be something on there that you're not good at. And that's okay. When you do your self-assessment, you know, we talk about strengths, but you can also identify your weaknesses. If they ask you about a programming language that you've never studied, you're not going to fake it with them. So just be honest and you'll know how to redirect that. Perhaps you've got a class coming next semester that's going to deal with that. But in doing this, you're looking at your strengths, your weaknesses, and how it fits.
Absolutely. Thank you. So we're going to get into storytelling now, because this is what this workshop is all about. So telling a great story about your experience, it puts you and the listener in the same place. People love to hear stories. It has the potential to answer key questions on an emotional level. When someone's telling a story about their background, you kind of get a little of those huggy-feely, touchy-feely types of feelings, okay? Even in an interview, believe it or not. Emotions tend to stick in one's memory long after the facts are gone. So you can quote all the facts, and you should. Statistics, facts, quantify as much as possible, but tell a story with it so it'll remain in the person's mind, because they'll remember that story and don't remember anything else. They interview a lot of people. It's hard to remember every single thing. So why is it effective? One of the hardest things about interviewing is balancing the need to get your qualifications with building, the need to get across your qualifications with building a rapport with the interviewer. It's so important when you're interviewing to build that rapport, but also let them know what your qualifications are. So if you tell the right story at the right time, interviewers, they just feel good about you, regardless of the other candidates. So stories are more memorable than facts alone. Our brains are just more active when we're listening to a story. And it expresses values you feel deeply. When you're telling a story about your experience, you're more expressive about the things that you value much more deeply than when you're just giving facts. So the key to a successful interview is great storytelling. All right, so Here's where storytelling comes in and is really important.
Tell me about yourself.
That is usually the first question you're asked in an interview, right? Tell me about yourself. Well, almost every job interview begins with this question. Most job seekers simply summarize their education, job history, and their current situation. Oh, you want to tell them a story. So, the information interview already knows from looking at your resume, right? So, you want to talk about who you are, what you've done, and what you can do, and telling them a story. Again, like I said, builds a rapport with that interviewer. It makes them like you. Honestly, it really does, if you're telling a story. They get a better sense of who you are beyond your resume and cover letter. So for example, this is me. I'm gonna read it really quickly. I recently moved to New Orleans. This is what I told in my interview. Well, it wasn't this exact thing, but it was something like this. I recently moved to New Orleans, so okay, tell me about yourself. Well, I recently moved to New Orleans from Nashville because of my love for its culture, jazz, and cuisine. They're gonna be like, oh wow, how cool. Okay? In the back of their mind, that's what they're thinking. Oh, wow, that's really cool. So they already like me, right? I don't know, they might. So I'm a senior student employer advisor at Tulane University School of Professional Advancement. I talked about that, but I just put that in there because that's what I'm doing now. My position was created to build a career services operation for the School of Professional Advancement students. I pursued this opportunity because I truly enjoy helping students fulfill their career goals. I'm like, oh wow, see, now they're getting to know me. I'm telling them somewhat of a story. Throughout my 6 years at Vanderbilt, I used my expertise to advise students on career decision making, provide blah, 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 blah. Those are all the things that I did. So in my story, when I'm asking tell me about yourself, I'm giving them a little bit of a story about myself, but also what I did, the most important things that I did at Vanderbilt, and these are the things that they were looking for. So in my story, I'm telling them purposefully, I'm telling them the things that they want in this position. I did a million other things I did a million other things at Vanderbilt, okay? But this is what they were looking for, so that's what I talked about in my tell me about yourself. So prior to Vanderbilt, I worked in employee relations at Michigan's Engineering Career Resource Center. I put that in because they wanted someone who had a background in employee relations. I didn't talk about the million other things I did in the tell me about yourself part. So later I did, obviously, but right here I just gave them some snippets of my career and career services, focusing on the things that they're looking for. So, and then I said I bring 9 years of career advising and employee relations. So I tied it together and will make it my priority to help elevate students toward achieving career success. So in the tell me about yourself, who you are, what you've done, but what can you do for them? End it with what you can do for them or what you want to do for them, what your goals are with the company. Okay? All right, excellent. Okay, so next, behavioral interviews. So this is basically the type of interviews that, nowadays it's usually a behavioral interview. Even if it's a technical part of it or a case interview, part of it is always a behavioral interview, especially in the first round. So we all know what it is. It's a style of question that asks you to provide examples of your past accomplishments as an indication of your future success. Think about past experiences where you've excelled. So that's what you want to do when you're preparing for an interview. You want to think about past experiences where you excelled. Structure your responses to ensure you're telling a complete story and answering the question, because sometimes we get into stuff, we're not really answering the question. So you want to make sure you're listening to the question, and when you're think about your response to the behavioral questions such as, tell me about a time when, share an example of, describe a situation where. Those are behavioral type questions, and those are the types of questions that you'll be asked in an interview. Tell me about a time when you succeeded. Tell me about a time when you failed. Share an example of a time when you didn't get along with a teammate. Describe a situation where you had to figure out something that you didn't know anything about. So what you do is you prepare several scenarios from your past experience that fits, again, with the job description. You don't want to pick something that has nothing to do with the job that you're applying for, or the job that you're interviewing for. You want to pick scenarios from your past. It could be transferable skills like leadership and problem solving and those sorts of things because you can do those things in any job in any company. But you also want to specifically pick things that you've done in a previous job that you'll be doing in this new job. And you will create, again, a story from that by stating the situation, task, the action, and the result. That's the STAR interview technique that you use when you're replying to behavioral questions. You state the situation, which is you set the scene. What was the task? What was the purpose? What was it that you needed to do? So what action did you take? Explain what you did. That's the most important thing. Well, the second most important, the third most important thing is to explain what did you do and the result. You want to share the outcome. A lot of people do the STA and forget the R. Well, you want to tell them what was the result because that's important. They want to show, well, what happened after you explain what you did, okay? STAR method is a structured manner of responding to behavioral interview questions. Always remember that. You can Google STAR. There's a wealth of information on the internet about the STAR method. Just, excuse me, you can Google behavioral interviews because you want to learn more about that. And you also want to learn more about how to respond to behavior interviews by using the STAR interview technique. Has anyone heard of the STAR interview technique before? No?
I have.
You have? Thank you. Very important because when you respond that way, you're giving them a complete story. So here's another example, and I wrote it because so you guys can read along with me if you want, or yeah. Tell me about a time when you had to complete a task under a tight deadline. That's a typical question that someone will ask you during an interview. So the response. While I typically like to plan my work out in stages and complete it piece by piece, I can also achieve strong work results under tight deadline. They set the stage here. Once at a former company, so this is the task. This is the task here. Once at a former company, an employee left days before a big project was due. I was asked to take it over with only a few days to learn about the complete project. So what action did they take? I created a task force, delegated work, and what was the result? And we all completed the project with a day to spare. Okay, so this is basically the STAR format of responding to a behavioral question. I would probably use, in my own interview, use something better than that, but that was just what I was thinking about. Oh, we just talk about something really, really quickly. But you want to make sure you're focusing in on what they're actually looking for from their job description. It's best if you're able to do that if at all possible. Or transferable skills, use some of those transferable skills. Like I said, problem solving and leadership and critical thinking and those sorts of things. Communication skills, and go ahead. Yeah.
And no, I was saying, notice how succinct this is. Those of us who tend to be verbose and go on and on and on, it's a good idea to practice this so that you say it quickly, you go through it took her, 45 seconds to tell the complete story, and it's one that they can remember.
That's a really, really good point because I'm very verbose. I talk too much, I actually do. But when I'm in an interview, I make sure I create these scenarios ahead of time because you can use any scenario with pretty much any behavioral question. Pick out 6 things that you've done in your past and write the scenario out and then have a response to it. So when they ask one of these questions, but like Don said, you want to make sure, you want to exercise brevity. You want to make sure it's straight to the point, nothing long-winded talking, because the longer you talk, the more you get off topic.
And the more nervous you'll get.
Yeah, and the more nervous you get, and then you end up not even answering the question. I know we always think, oh, I know they want this long. No, they don't care about a long, drawn-out response. They just want to know the situation, the task, the action you took, and the result. That's it. All right, so prepare several scenarios, making sure that they're closely related to the job and as soon as possible, like I said. All right. Oh, most important, I forgot about this part. Talk about how you achieved a goal, solved a problem, or added value. Those things always stick out, okay? Ooh, I better hurry up, we only have a couple minutes. These people at the door. All right, so what is your greatest strength?
Go ahead.
Consider how your unique strengths can also be an asset for the company and the position that you're applying to. And you also, once again, want to tell a story. You don't want to just say what your greatest strength is. You want to show them, tell them a story, give them an example of one of your greatest strengths and how you've used it in a past job.
Just briefly, Murphy's Law, everything that can go wrong will go wrong. People forget most of what we say, so if we talk a lot, they're going to forget it. They never forget how we make them feel. And if you don't believe that, forget your wife's birthday sometime. Autobiographical story, she will never forget how you made her feel that day. So you have to go overboard. Well, that can be used in a positive also. And if they connect with your story about the deadline and putting together the task force, that's the sort of thing that they come away with.
Absolutely. Yep. That's why we tell stories in a job interview. All right, so what is your greatest weakness? Nowadays, they typically will say, what would you like to improve upon? But it's really the same thing. So you want to show how you're overcoming that particular weakness. For example, I'm going to do this really quickly, I have 5 minutes. Public speaking. When I first started out, this isn't me, this is just an example. When I first started out my career, I wasn't a good public speaker, and I still struggle with it. That's their weakness. I knew this was something I wanted to overcome, so I promised myself to speak up more in small groups and meetings. Later, this is how they're improving upon it, I took a step further and took a public speaking class and volunteered to lead class presentations. Now, and this is showing that this is still a weakness, but they're working on it. Now, even though it doesn't come naturally to me, I made some big improvements. In fact, and then they're giving them a concrete outcome. Exactly. Yes. Thank you. In fact, I recently presented at a conference to an audience of over 100 people. So it's simple, a concrete example. They talk about the steps that you took to address the weakness and show improvement, and mention you're still working on it, but you've made some great progress. Everybody has weaknesses. Don't be afraid to share them. You definitely don't want to make any of your weaknesses something that you're looking for in the job description. Pick something else. There are a multitude of things that you could select. Or actually pick something that's very, very true,
Yes.
because it's more believable.
Yes. Tell the truth.
Yes.
The patent answer for years to this question was, what are your weaknesses? I care too much and I work too hard. Come on, everybody knows you're bluffing them with that. So tell a story, tell something true.
Yes, absolutely. And that's it, because it's only 30 minutes and it goes by quickly. But do you have any questions at all? We do have time for questions if you have any. Any interviews coming up? No? Okay.
What's the worst thing you've seen happen in a job interview?
The worst thing I've seen happen is, well, several things. One was a person never answered any of the questions I asked them. Because they were nervous and they were too busy just talking. Second thing is when people bring too much of their personal information to an interview. Don't bring up your husband, don't bring up your kids, they don't need to know that. They shouldn't even ask you that, but don't bring it up. I moved here because my husband, no, or my wife or whatever, sorry.
Yep.
No, you moved here because they don't need to know you moved here because your husband got a job. Or because you wanted your kids to go to a better school.
Right.
No, talk about yourself. Don't bring up other people and other things. I'm getting married in November. You're getting married, you're just applying for this job. You think they're gonna hire you? No, you're gonna need time off for your wedding and your vacation? Honeymoon?
Yes.
So those are some of those things. What about you, Don?
I had an interviewee in Houston, Texas, that great person, finalist, one of the top 2 candidates, and toward the end of the interview where she had the job, she says, oh, and I'll need to take off some time, I'm pregnant. I can't legally ask her that.
Right.
She would have gotten the offer, and then had she revealed it, we would have worked through it.
Right.
But because she volunteered it, the other people on the committee, their pencils all went down in unison. So, nope, not this. Now, we ended up hiring her a year later after she had the baby and was settled, because she was a great candidate. But for that moment in that time, don't tell me that. I can't legally ask, so please don't volunteer it.
Don't volunteer it, because you don't have to tell them you're pregnant. That's not your business.
That's right.
Yeah, but when you start, you start to take, leave.
I got a job when I was 8 months pregnant. They did not know until I start.
Ah,
There you
So,
go.
by the way, it's not a box.
Good job.
awesome. Thank you.
Thank
Take some
you.
more pizza with you if you'd like. Thank you so much for coming. Appreciate
Thanks,
it.
everyone.
Very good tips. I actually interviewed, we were interviewing for a receptionist, and I had a woman come in for the position. She was 15 minutes late for the interview.